It started with a warning. Not a dramatic argument, not a heated debate, just a quiet message, delivered on a railway platform on a cool August morning in 1943. A message that should have changed everything, but changed nothing. And because it was ignored, thousands of pilots would die in battles they never had a chance to win. On August 17, 1943, General Adolf Galland stood on the platform at Rinteln Heath in East Prussia. He wasn't there for ceremony. He wasn't there to impress anyone. He was there because he had intelligence that could no longer wait. Reichsmarschall Hermann Göring was about to depart, and Galland needed to tell him face-to-face before the opportunity disappeared. Just hours earlier, the Luftwaffe had intercepted a massive American bombing mission aimed at Regensburg and Schweinfurt. Galland had spent the morning gathering urgent reports from multiple squadrons. The pattern was impossible to ignore. American escort fighters were appearing in places they had no business being, deep inside Germany, well past the range where P-47 Thunderbolts were supposed to run out of fuel. But the reports were consistent. They were clear. And they were alarming. German pilots were fighting Lockheed P-38 Lightnings, equipped with external drop tanks, over 150 miles inside German airspace. The Americans had extended their range. They were escorting their bombers far deeper than anyone believed possible. The entire German strategy, built around timing attacks for when escorts turned back, was now obsolete. Galland approached Göring with urgency. He explained what the pilots had seen. He explained the drop tank system. He explained that multiple wings across different sectors had reported the same thing. Göring refused to believe a single word. He insisted the P-38s must have been damaged aircraft drifting inland after being hit. He claimed it was physically impossible for American fighters to reach so far into the Reich. And then, with stunning finality, he gave Galland a direct order, officially record that no American fighter had penetrated central Germany. Galland realized, in that instant, that Göring wasn't denying the intelligence because it was wrong. He was denying it because admitting the truth would force him to change everything. Galland gave a small smile and said quietly, "Orders are orders, sir." Göring boarded his luxury train. The doors closed. The engine rumbled. And Galland watched it leave, fully aware that the Luftwaffe had just thrown away its last chance to prepare for the threat that would soon destroy it. That same day, Germany paid the first price for Göring's denial. During the Regensburg-Schweinfurt raids, long-range P-38 escorts appeared exactly where doctrine said they could not be. They tore into German interceptors, disrupting attacks and killing experienced pilots. And it wasn't a one-time incident. Over the next weeks, German squadrons kept reporting the same thing. Escorts were everywhere. The assumption that had shaped Luftwaffe tactics for years, that American fighters would always turn back early, was gone. 3 weeks later, on September 6, 1943, P-38s escorted B-17 bombers deep into southern Germany during a raid on Stuttgart. Major Egon Meyer, one of Germany's most effective bomber destroyers, barely escaped with his life. 5 of his pilots didn't return. Their mission, built around outdated assumptions, collapsed instantly the moment the escorts appeared. By October, the pattern was unmistakable. Raids were getting deeper. Escorts were getting stronger. Losses were getting worse. On October 14th, Black Thursday, American bombers suffered heavy casualties over Schweinfurt, but German fighter losses were nearly as severe. 60 American bombers fell. But the Luftwaffe lost 38 fighters and 42 pilots. Before long-range escorts, Germany destroyed 3 or 4 bombers for every fighter it lost. Now the ratio was nearly equal, and equality, for Germany, was fatal. Galland compiled a detailed report for Göring. It showed the collapse in cold numbers: 87 fighter losses in June, 106 in July, 174 in August, 193 in September, 224 in October. Worse than the numbers was the quality. In June, most pilots had 6 months or more experience. By October, the majority were flying with less than that. The Luftwaffe was losing its veterans, the men who could win battles and train the next generation. Galland warned in writing, at this pace, the fighter arm would break within 6 months. No response came. And then came the final turning point, the arrival of the P-51 Mustang. In December 1943, American units in England began flying the Mustang equipped with the British Rolls-Royce Merlin engine. Suddenly, The Allies had a fighter that could outclimb, outrun, or outmaneuver almost anything Germany had, and fly all the way to the heart of Germany. On December 13th, a group of P-51s escorted bombers deep inland, fought off interceptors, and returned without a single loss. The escort problem that had haunted the American daylight bombing campaign for 2 years was over. Galland traveled to Berlin immediately. He laid out the technical data. He explained the Mustang's range, climb rate, and high-altitude power. He warned that the P-51 could escort bombers everywhere, from Munich to Berlin, from Hamburg to the Ruhr. He begged Göring to prioritize fighter production, expand training, and rush the Me-262 jet into service. Göring dismissed it. He said German pilots were superior. He said German tactics were superior. He said the P-51 was just another American fighter. But it wasn't another fighter. It was the one aircraft Germany had no answer for. By early 1944, America launched Operation Argument, Big Week, a devastating 6-day assault on German aircraft factories. The Luftwaffe threw everything it had into the air. The result was catastrophic. Germany lost hundreds of fighters in a single week. More than 100 pilots were killed and dozens more wounded or missing. Many were elite aces with years of experience. Production increased, but the training system collapsed. There wasn't enough fuel to train new pilots properly. Training bases were bombed. Instructors died. Recruits arrived at frontline squadrons with barely 150 hours of flight time, facing opponents who had double or triple that. Many rookies died after only a handful of missions. One squadron commander later said, receiving new pilots in 1944 felt like executing them. Desperate commanders tried new tactics. Some attempted to strike escorts before they reached the bombers. Others tried high-speed dives or coordinated attacks from altitude. Some succeeded, for a moment, but the cost was unbearable. For every 2 enemy aircraft they destroyed, they lost nearly as many of their own. The Luftwaffe wasn't just losing airplanes. It was losing the people who knew how to fly them. And then came D-Day. On June 6, 1944, Luftflotte 3 should have unleashed massive strikes against the Allied invasion fleet. But the Luftwaffe could barely fly. Out of 481 available aircraft, only 319 sorties were flown. The Allies flew nearly 15,000. Many Allied soldiers never saw a single German plane. The Luftwaffe hadn't been defeated on D-Day. It had been defeated months earlier, when the training system collapsed and veterans died faster than replacements could be trained. Losses soared through the summer. 300 fighters lost in June. 400 in July. Nearly 500 in August. Factories produced aircraft, but they sat idle for lack of pilots, fuel, spare parts, or safe airfields. In November 1944, Galland launched his last major effort, 500 fighters against a massive American raid. 98 German fighters were shot down. 78 pilots died. Americans lost 50 aircraft total, most to anti-aircraft fire, not fighters. The Luftwaffe was no longer a fighting force. It was a list of units on paper. Göring blamed Galland. In January 1945, after a meeting now known as the Fighter Pilots Revolt, Galland was removed from command. The SS began preparing charges. Only Hitler intervened. He valued Galland's reputation too much to risk a public trial. Instead, Hitler ordered Galland to lead a special jet unit, Jagdverband 44, flying the revolutionary Me-262. The jet was everything Galland had promised: fast, powerful, deadly. But it was too late. Fuel was gone. Airfields were bombed. Germany was collapsing on all fronts. Galland scored several kills in the Me-262 during the final weeks of the war. But on April 26, 1945, he was hit by a P-47 and forced to crash land. It was his last mission. 12 days later, Germany surrendered. After the war, historians uncovered the full story of that August morning in 1943. They found Galland's intelligence reports. They found Göring's dismissals. They found combat records proving everything Galland had warned about. And they interviewed the surviving German pilots who fought and died, following orders based on a lie. The conclusion was chillingly clear. The Luftwaffe wasn't defeated by enemy planes. It was defeated by denial. By leadership that refused to accept reality. By decisions that made adaptation impossible. Galland himself later said, "We were fighting an enemy our leader insisted did not exist." And that is the true tragedy. A single warning, ignored. A threat, denied. And an air force that collapsed not because its pilots lacked courage, but because its leaders lacked truth. If this story moved you, if you want more untold World War II stories brought to life, make sure to like this video so others can find it. Subscribe for more deep, immersive historical narratives. And let us know in the comments, where are you watching from, and which forgotten moment of history should we bring to life next? Thank you for listening. And thank you for keeping these stories alive.